Well, this is a rather strange little steam engine. I saw this on eBay and was intrigued by it, and I put in a bid and I managed to win the auction. And well, yeah, so obviously it's a marine, or meant to be a marine engine. You know, very low boiler, rear-facing, oscillating cylinder steam engine. But it's a bit of a conundrum, really, because I think that the engine is commercially made. This part here, the engine itself, that's a brass casting. So, you know, that would tend to indicate that it's commercially made. It's got a very nice, I think it's a copper boiler. But again, the firebox, this part here, this all looks like it's been, you know, possibly scratch built. Yeah, I mean, it all needs completely stripping down and cleaning up and all the rest of it. But the engine is at the moment free to turn. But yeah, I just find it interesting. It's got to stop it. We'll take that out. It has this burner, which again, you know, to me looks scratch built. It's just been folded up, I think, and soldered up. You know, so yeah, I think this is the first marine engine that I've actually got. So that's interesting for me in itself. But yeah, it needs to be stripped down and yeah, taken apart. Interestingly, normally marine engine flywheels, they have two pins sticking out of them, and this one has only got one. I thought maybe it had broken off, but there's no sign that there ever was a second pin in that flywheel. But yeah, so we need to get it stripped down and see what we've got. Well, that didn't take long to strip down. I mean, there's very little to it. It's only an oscillating cylinder engine. But I think the very first thing we're going to do is put the boiler into a nice vinegar bath, because as you can see, it is pretty disgusting, and it's obviously been steamed because that sort of sooty cag on there. So yeah, so that'll go and get a vinegar bath. The other problem we got with this is it looks like that might possibly be asbestos in there on both sides. It's not. I mean, to be honest, it's not that surprising. It was used on fireboxes as insulation years ago, so you know I'm not too surprised at that. But that's going to have to come off, obviously. We can't have that in there, but no, you know. So the boiler's copper, which is great, you know, obviously very good. So all of this just needs some basic cleaning up. Pipes need to be straightened and rerouted a little bit, but yeah, still no idea who made it. There's no maker's marks on the engine at all that I could see. Well, certainly haven't found them yet, but I might. Something might appear when I clean the paint off. But we'll see. Well, we've had a little bit of progress on the small marine steam engine. I've cleaned up all the brass parts, and the firebox has had the insulation removed from it. Now, I'm making the assumption it was asbestos. I don't know that for a fact, but we've taken that off anyway, just to be on the safe side. The firebox was held to the base, the aluminium base plate here, using some copper rivets, which I simply filed off and then tapped out. So I was able to remove that. I've still got to clean up the firebox and the base. Still needs some work doing on it. But as I said, that's what I'll do next. The boiler is soaking in vinegar. It's been in about 2 days now, so it's almost ready to come out. So we'll fish that out in a minute. Yeah. So all of this cleaned up. There's because it's only an oscillating engine. You know, there's not much to it really. So all of that cleaned up fairly well. But while I was cleaning the engine itself, I was looking at it and I thought, well, I don't know, this it seems awfully familiar, this engine to me. So I went out and had a look at some of the other engines in my collection. I found something which is very similar. So a while ago I did a restoration of this rather lovely Swan M1 engine, which was a superb engine. But I'll close in on the actual engine itself, and I've put the engine body, you know, next to it, and have a look, because they are very. There are some noticeable differences, but they are very similar. Now I'm sure it's not me, but they look very similar to me. I mean, you know, this part here, the webbing, it's a bit different, the webbing, but you know, the Boss for the rod and spring that hold the cylinder onto the engine plate. The fact that you have a input feed here and exhaust here, obviously they're round the other way on the Swan, but all that does is determine which way the engine rotates. You've got your oiler hole in the boss down here. It's all very similar. Obviously the webbing here compared to here, it's much longer, it's much deeper, and obviously the base is much bigger as well. So there are differences. The Marine engine has a machine slot here, which is for an oiler pad, I'm assuming, which the Swan doesn't have. But that's about the closest I could find in the engines in my collection in appearance to another engine. So interesting. Okay, time for the boiler big reveal. It's been in here, must be at least 2 days, at least overnight, 2 days, yeah. I've given it a brush over with a fairly soft brass wire brush, but let's hoik it out and have a look. Drain the vinegar out. Because the other beauty of the vinegar bath is it cleans the inside of the boiler, so if there's any build-up of any kind of kettle fur or anything like that inside, then obviously that all gets dissolved in the vinegar too, which is just brilliant. But yeah, I mean, it's still going to need. There's still more clean up to do on it, obviously. Let's tip it that way now. I'll see if we can get. There we go. Yeah, I think we're pretty much there. But you can see, I mean, all of the base of that was really, you know, that really was badly covered in soot and burn, yeah, the vinegar does an absolutely brilliant job. It's particularly good on brass and copper. So, you know, I mean, all of this, I'll just put some metal polish and it'll come off. All of the rest of that will come off, no problem at all. So yeah, so that needs to be rinsed out now, and then we'll do the final clean up on that. But certainly the boiler looks to be in good condition. You know, there's a little bit of a dent here at this end, but that's about it. So yes, we'll get that cleaned up, and we can move on to the next part. I thought we'd have a go with the old Ovenmate on the base and firebox. The paint doesn't seem to be put on very well. It certainly doesn't seem to be that there was any etch prime used on it. So hopefully the Ovenmate will do work its wonders, and it'll get most of that black off with a bit of luck. The inside of the firebox is going to be fairly easy to clean up because obviously there was no paint on the inside. It was mainly covered with the insulation. So we'll give that an hour or so to do its magic, and then we'll wash it off and see what we've got. Well, as I suspected, that paint wasn't really any kind of a serious challenge to the Ovenmate, and it's got, I don't know, what, 90% of it off. So it just needs a bit more of these both need a bit more of a clean up. And then I think what I'll do is I'll paint both of them using the black high temperature engine paint. This has got to be done in that, and I might as well do this in the same thing. But this needs to be straightened out. This is quite bent and twisted, and it's very definitely not flat. So I've got to do some work on that before we can get to the next stage. Well, I've been really lucky. These last few days over here in the UK, the temperature has shot up outside, and it's been warm enough for me to get outside and spray paint the firebox and the base, which is great because it allows me to progress with this little steam engine restore. So what am I going to do next? Well, I've got the bandsaw out and I've got my little makeshift fence set up. What I'm going to attempt to do is cut some thin slices from that fire brick, or piece of fire brick, which is there. Now I don't know how well this is going to work. I have cut fire bricks before using the bandsaw and it worked fine, but I've cut large bricks into smaller bricks. I haven't cut thin strips, so I've got it set to about 1/4 inch, which would be ideal for the insulation for the inside of the firebox. So we'll give it a go. Helps if you turn the actual bandsaw on at the mains. worked out quite well. I think that will do nicely. That should fit inside the firebox. The idea is that it's going to go up inside there like that, obviously above the air vent holes, and take the place of, there we go, it's a better view inside, take the place of the original, what I thought was asbestos. So I'll cut another strip and that will be ready to go. Well, it's all back together. I think it's looking quite nice. I elected not to paint the engine frame and the cylinder, though they were green, I think, originally. I just like the polished brass, looks really nice. I've had a little bit of rerouting with the steam pipe, because that was all bent out of shape, but I think it's more or less where I want it now. Full disclosure, I have run this on air, and the reason for doing so was I wasn't happy with the way the cylinder against the port plate, it didn't feel right. So I thought, well, I'll run it on air, I'll try and run it on air. And it ran on air, but would only run at about 20 psi, which is way too high. You shouldn't need anything like that to run a little engine like that. So I basically took a hone to the very fine hone to the port face and the face of the cylinder, effectively lapped them in really, put it back together, run it again, and now all run right down to about 10 psi, no problem at all. So there was definitely some rough spots on the surfaces, the mating surfaces there, but yeah, it runs fine. So the next stage is obviously to try and run it on steam, but before we get there, I want to put this on a wooden base. So I've fished out a bit of a piece of wood from my scrap wood bin, and that's going to be it's not finished. I need to sand it. I've got a bit more sanding on it yet, but that's going to be the base, and we'll treat that with some finishing oil. And yeah, once that's done, then we'll get the little thing steamed. The fire brick pieces, they went in there quite nicely. So far so good. Whether they'll stay there or whether they'll crumble and fall apart, I don't know. But for the time being, they're doing the job that the original, what I think was asbestos insulation, was doing. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. Well, we're coming up to the moment of truth. There's hot water in the boiler. My long Bix gas burner is in there, which is ideal given the length of the boiler. And I can hear signs of boiling. We've got steam oil in the oiler. There's plenty of heat coming off of that. So all we've got to do now is wait for it to build up a little bit of pressure. And hopefully it will run. Ooh, probably overfilled the boiler. That looks like I've overfilled the boiler, doesn't it? And we got a little bit of steam leak from there. I'll leave it a little bit longer. Well, I think we're about there. See, which way is it going to rotate? So the steam's coming in this, so it's going to go that way. Oh yes, there we go. Beautiful. Of course it's going to vibrate and move around on the fire bricks, but I've got to have it propped up that high because I've only got a short pipe to the burner. Right, a 1, 2, 3 block will stop it from moving too much. Oh yes, I'm impressed with that. Sweet as a nut. Work with the home was definitely worthwhile. Oh, that's running superbly. So, there you go. Making next to no sound. Now, I don't know hardly anything about model steam engines and model boats with model steam engines. So if anyone out there can tell me how this single pin coupling works for obviously the shaft that drives the propeller, that would be that would be most useful, because I honestly, I don't know how these work at all. But the engine is obviously, there's nothing wrong with that. That is superb. Absolutely purring away. Power we've got here. Yeah, not much. Certainly enough to drive a propeller, I would have thought. I've got the gas turned right down as well, so, you know, it's running on very little pressure at the moment. Yeah, I'm well pleased with that. That was well worth the effort. My first Marine model steam engine, yay! I have a little bit of a leak from the union here, but that seems to have sealed itself. Yeah, very, very nice. I'm well pleased with that. Let's change the camera angle. There's a front view. Smooth as silk. It's so quiet. I'm sure my engines were that quiet. It's absolutely lovely. Well, there you go. That little unknown Marine steam engine purring like a good one. Yeah, if there's anyone out there that recognises this or knows anything about this, I'm sure this is a commercially made engine. That is a brass casting, definitely. And I would imagine that was, you know, factory made. But as for the rest of it, probably scratch built. But, you know. Absolutely lovely. So, I think that'll be about it for the little Marine steam engine. Let's turn the gas off. Yeah, there we go. So, I hope you've enjoyed this little video on this engine. I thought it, you know, makes a change. As I said, this is my very first Marine engine, and I'm quite pleased at how it turned out. It's, you know, quite nice looking, and it runs an absolute treat. But I think that'll be it for this. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Cheers!